Abigail Whiten is a singer-songwriter from Sydney who released the EP Interwoven in 2019. In recent months, she has released the singles Letter and If You Let Me from her new EP Soon. She's also supported Fanny Lumsden at her Sydney show, played at the National Folk Festival, and I'm pretty sure she has other things going on. So we're going to talk mainly about the EP, maybe some other things. Hi, Abigail.
Hello. Hi, Sophie. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you, and it's great to have met you in person at least twice, maybe more actually, around Sydney. That's the benefit of us both living in the same town, and I'm hoping to see you play live again in Sydney soon because I did see you play with Fanny. In fact, I'll start with that because you
Mm.
played support for Fanny Lumsden at Leichhardt Town Hall when Fanny was on her Country Halls tour. How did that come about?
Oh, it came about because Fanny has been doing this wonderful thing in looking for local support acts to support her on this run of Country Horse Tour shows. So she had a call out where anyone could apply to be her support act, and it was like a contest. And I actually, fun fact, I didn't win the contest for Sydney.
All right.
My good friend Isabel Knight did, but a few days before the gig, I got an email to say that from Fanny and her team that they really loved me and my music and have made me runner up, and would I like to play a tiny 10-minute set at the start of the show. And of course I said yes. I cried and called my mum.
Oh.
Um, and yeah, I already had tickets to see Fanny at her Sydney show because I am a fan, and it was the best 10 minutes of my life. And I think it was just also just such a gift to get to see uh, Fanny and her husband Dan, and she has her brother in the band as well, and just seeing how they all work as a team and support each other so beautifully.
Mhm.
And since then, the fact that I got to play for 10 minutes at the side of Fanny Lumsden's show has like opened doors for me. So yeah, I'm just like eternally grateful to Fanny and her team for giving me a chance.
Isn't that wonderful that that can have that impact? Of course, the reason why it's open doors is because you did a fantastic job. I was there, I saw
Oh.
you. But it's lovely that the just that one thing can have that kind of impact for you as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I think like it really made me realize that um yeah, it just takes a lot of things, uh a lot of like little things that will like open doors and maybe lead to another cool experience.
And of course, there's that saying that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So
Ooh.
you were, you were prepared, the opportunity came, and some might say, "Oh, you were just lucky," but you know, Fanny made you that runner up for a reason, and also offered you that slot for a reason because she has many artists who want those slots. So when you walked out on that stage, it was a packed show. Were you nervous, excited, or both?
I was nervous and excited. Um I've had quite bad performance anxiety um like previously, but have like worked really, really hard by performing as much as I can to try and desensitize myself. So normally I don't get too nervous anymore, but I was nervous because it was just like such an honor and such an incredible thing. But yeah, I think it might have been one of the bigger rooms I've played original music
Mhm.
in. And yeah, my parents came to watch because they're also Fanny Wilson fans, and they teased me because at the start of my set I said, "Yeah, so this is my first song, a letter, blah blah blah." And then when I finished, I was like, "And I've got time for one more song." And they thought it was so silly that I like that's how I introduced the fact that I was only playing two songs. But yeah, it was two songs more than I uh, could have. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was great.
So mentioning that you have had bad performance anxiety, I suppose that is the eternal rub for performing artists is that you know you want to be out there playing and sharing your music with people live, but you can't help it really when you get anxiety, and it can take such a lot of work to overcome it.
Yeah, I think it's been really helpful learning just how many people have performance anxiety and or stage fright, as some
Yeah.
people call it. And yeah, and notice, like, finding out that even some like big artists like Lizzie McAlpine, who I really love, who still has quite bad stage fright, even at the level of success she's at. Um, but yeah, I think my desire to share my songs kind of drives me to keep performing. And I've actually really grown to love performing. I didn't like performing when I first was like trying to take songwriting seriously when I was 18, but then I've really grown to love performing, and the connection you can have with an audience that's different to just them listening to a recording.
I think being around Fanny, whether it's in the audience or sharing a stage with her, is actually a good way to train you. Well, just see how people can not be anxious performing, because even if she is anxious, you'd never know. But she just throws herself into performance, and I think part of what she's arrived at is just making the whole thing a rolling experience, so that it doesn't matter what happens. Like, she burnt her hand on a light
She
in that
did.
gig, and she just said it. And some people might think, oh no, I can't admit that, but whatever goes wrong, she's just like, oh well, this is what's happened, and it becomes part of the show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's definitely a very seasoned performer,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was yeah, great to see her in action.
So you went to the National Folk Festival after you played with Fanny. So what was that like?
I did, yes. It was my first time going to the National Folk Festival, and I loved it so much. I wasn't accepted as an artist, but I was volunteering on the artist liaison team. So I got to meet slash slightly fangirl to some artists that I love. And I got to play on the Bohemia stage, which is the Blackboard stage. And they really liked me. So then they invited me back in the evening to showcase, which was great. But it just was such an enriching like long weekend, and I was like so sad driving home at the end that it was over, but just so encouraged that this is what I have to be doing in my life.
Right.
That like this, I love music so much, and I basically, yeah, it was just like the big encouragement I needed before this busy EP release season of like, I'm doing this because I like truly believe it's what I'm meant to be doing on earth.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah. Well, what a fantastic results from being at the festival to have that.
Yes.
So I have completely lost my train of thought. We were talking about the folk festival. Oh, you were talking about, music is what you're meant to be doing. At what age did you realize that? Or actually, let's go further back. At what age did you start playing an instrument, or did you start singing first?
Ooh, well, apparently my parents say that my first words were actually sung. Which they said that I was singing this song like ole 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 ole, because I was born in 1997, so I feel like uh maybe like at the end of 1997, so that song must have been popular in
Right.
1999 or 1998, I assume. And yeah, I loved singing when I was little. I had piano lessons from when I was about 6, and uh, would write songs. And one of the earliest songs I remember writing was a song for my pet mice. And if you know anything about mice, you would maybe know that they don't live very long. And they were my favorite pet growing up. And we would go through a lot of mice. And every time we would have a funeral in the backyard, I would sing my pet mouse funeral song,
Oh,
and I
shit.
would make my family sing along with me.
So you didn't do a new song for every mouse. It was, you had the dirge sorted for the mouse
But
funeral.
we had the dirge for the chorus, but then I would like improvise a verse based on the particular mouse. And so that's like the childhood. But then I at school I think that I would like singing a lot, and I would do competitions, and I would just like shake all over. And it was always something that I loved, but I was always going to do as a serious normal job. Like
Right.
I thought I was going to do something medical or a vet or something. And it wasn't until I left school and did the first semester of medical science with like the cadavers and
Oh.
all that, that after the first semester I was like, this is not it. And it was, there was a specific moment when I was able to realize that it was like truly music that I was like passionate about. And yeah, then that's then led me to study music, and fast forward many years now we're here.
Yeah, because you did a Bachelor of Music, in fact.
I
So from what
did,
I understand
yes.
about that degree, you can focus on something. You can do a songwriting focus or a voice or whatever it is. What was your particular focus?
Yeah, so I was doing contemporary performance, majoring in voice, but I was in the songwriting stream, which meant that I would be marked on my singing ability, but then would also be marked every semester on an original song. And then when I did my final recital, like final performance at the end of the degree, most of my classmates were marked on like 40 minutes of them like playing covers, but I did 25 minutes of original songs and had to hand in a recorded EP, which is Interwoven.
All right.
The EP that I made that at Varsity Uni. So there were like a few little differences on the way through where I had more of a focus on composition, but yeah, it was a performance degree rather than a composition degree.
Did you feel that you needed the structure of that degree to make you songwrite, or was it just like you were already quite a habitual songwriter, so it was really just that, oh, like, I can come up with these songs to the degree, that's no problem?
Oh, that's a good question. I think when I dropped out of my medical degree, I auditioned for AIM, Australian Institute of Music, and then once I got in, I then had about a month before I started. And in that time, I wasn't doing much, and I would like challenge myself to write a song like every day or every other day. And then at AIM, it was really helpful that there was the structure of having to write songs for assignments. And yeah, that was very helpful. Sometimes I do miss that structure because I feel like whilst at AIM, I wrote heaps and heaps of songs, and I still write songs often, but not quite as frequently as I did when I was studying music.
Well, also probably because you're doing a few other things, so I don't need the time.
It is hard to find time.
So you released Interwoven in 2019. When did you start writing songs for your new EP, Soon?
Oh, so the title track Soon, I actually wrote in 2018. So when I was actually, the songs for Interwoven were all written in, like most of them were written in 2018. So Soon could have been on that first EP, but it was quite sad. And I didn't really love performing it live. So I decided not to record it. And then I realized it was very special. So that's the oldest one. And then a few of them I wrote in 2019, and the newest one I wrote in 2020. So they're actually songs that are all from like that snippet of time of like finishing uni and start of the pandemic as well. And yeah, I've written a lot of songs since then, but yeah, these are all just from my early 20s.
And that's really interesting that you chose to record songs from them, because as you said, you've written some more songs. Is it because you felt like it's a good idea to let those marinate for a while before you record them, so it was better to go back to a previous batch?
Oh, yeah, in a way, like it's hard because I'd chosen the songs for the EP back in 2021, and I remember meeting up with an engineer, and we decided to record 2 songs that I released as a dual single as like just to see how we work together. And we recorded those like right at the end of lockdown in, well, sorry, like just after lockdown had ended. It was legal. Like as soon as lockdown allowed us to, we recorded those, and then then 2022 was like a big year for a number of reasons. And then it was last year when I was thinking about recording this EP finally, I nearly threw all those songs away because they'd felt like they were so old, and some of them felt a little cringy to me because I could really hear like the very young voice of Abby in like the depths of unrequited love. And yeah, I nearly decided to just like let them go, but then and like focus on new material. But I then was able to change my mind and realized that they were songs that I'd played live so often and were really special to me. And I knew that if I didn't record them now, then I don't know when they would fit to record another time. So yeah, just decided to like honor that time of my life and record them. So then once they're released, I can let them go and move on to bigger and better things. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to have a quick turnaround of recording like some of the really big artists, but like COVID and some other things made for some delays. Yeah.
And hopefully when you listen back to those songs now, you think kindly of younger Abby and don't think she's cringy anymore.
Yes. Yeah. I think recording them again, really was it was so vulnerable but very special. It kind of felt like a time capsule from that point in my life. And yeah, I just really had to let go of whatever cringiness I felt and tell myself that those songs were so real to me when I wrote them. And I hope that other people that age really find them relatable, and that but that also art is a strange and weird thing, and it's never going to be completely perfect and nice. But yeah, a little bit of like and then it's like okay to like cringe a little bit maybe.
Well, in the singing of them, they sound emotionally immediate, if you know what I mean. Like it sounds like you are connected to those stories. So when you went to record them, given that they were written a fair while ago, did you put yourself back into younger Abby's mindset or heart set, for lack of a better term?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I realized I meant to put on do not disturb. I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right.
It really felt like kind of like diving back into like old diary pages in a way where I had to really remember, especially for one of the songs called 23. I that's one where I was like, oh, like I just really have to take myself back to that moment of having just like a really pure, innocent crush on a friend, which is something that a lot of us feel when we're young, but also like crushes can happen at any age.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then it also was like very emotional. I remember when I'd just like we'd finished recording and gotten mixes, I felt like I just then was like grieving grieving for old Abby, and realized that I'd like held on to a lot of pain from that time of my life, and recording them. And then now that they are set to be out in the world, it feels like it was such a helpful thing to let go of all the sadness and insecurities that kind of are woven into those songs.
Because you might think that writing them would do that, would help you to move through the process. So
Yeah.
it is really interesting that it was actually the recording of it, because I guess also at that point you realize you had been holding on to things for a while. So and it can be quite jarring when you realize that when you're making art, I guess, to think, oh, well, wait a second, was that just lurking in me all that time?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do process a lot when songwriting. Um, and I think uh at least one at least one of the songs I wrote to try and figure out how I was feeling about a situation. But I also just think I'm a very slow processor. I've come to learn about myself. So I think I yeah, it, I just take a long time to think
I
of
don't think
things.
there's any right time. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
do it in your own time. But one song that is about letting go is Letter. And
Mm.
I did have a just more an observation about that one, because it's a letter you've written to an ex and you're trying to express why the relationship didn't work, and you're clearly trying to soften the end and be kind to that person. But then the conclusion is, as you sing, that you had to leave to save yourself, which is a pretty big statement.
Yeah.
I find an interesting story that like you were writing it, because it's almost like you were writing your way to that conclusion. Like, oh, I don't mean you any ill, like this is all fine, but I actually had to get out of this or I was going to disappear.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Good. I'm glad you picked up on that. Um, yeah, I remember writing it and yeah, just breakups are hard. And I this was a fairly short relationship that inspired me to write this song. But I remember, yeah, just feeling so terrible, but knowing that I just like had to leave. And it it's kind of linked to another song in the EP called The Rain Is Steady, because The Rain Is Steady was written at a very similar time when I felt like I just was crying nearly every day. And I mean no harm to this person that um I was dating at the time, but I just was very sad. And I yeah, think because we were just not a good match for each other. But yeah, so by by ending the relationship, I really had to just like put my well-being first and realize that it's not normal to cry every day.
No,
um not it's not. um yeah, but then uh yeah, it's a song that I do love playing live, because I sometimes am a little cheeky with it when I perform it, because in one of the verses I say, like, I wonder what you're saying to our friends that were yours about how I'm the problem, I'm the cause. So I'll stand my ground, hold my head up high. And for your information, I'm telling everyone you're a nice guy. And I've like tried like different little funny things to say at the end of that verse. And one of my friends told me that I should say until now, like at the end of that. And like maybe we're gonna try and make that a thing for the EP shows. Yeah, I'm not quite at the stage of putting. I never want to put too much detail in a song
Hmm.
that it would be really obvious who it's about, because a lot of my songs are inspired by true life, but are also a lot of my imagination. Um, but yeah, that one is a funny one to get to play live.
And sometimes I feel like, particularly because you're mainly in the folk genre, but even in country music, there is a little bit of implied pressure to write the true stuff, like to not use your imagination. But of course, as we've seen with Taylor Swift on Folklore Evermore, and now I think on Tortured Poets, there's quite a lot of imaginative work there. So I feel like she has possibly given songwriters permission to use their imagination. Not that they needed it, but as I said, there can be that pressure as a songwriter, I would think, to just tell the true story. Have you ever felt that in the genre you're in?
Yeah, that is something I do really love about the folk and country scene, is the stories. And often at live gigs, hearing a little bit of the story before they play the song, how they like say a little bit about what inspired them to write the song. And I think I through like conversations with other friends who are writers, we've come to find that if you're not telling the truth, it's obvious. And if you're like often if you're like trying to be trying to write something that you feel like you should say, that it is easy to come across as inauthentic, and that sometimes the the lyrics that feel a little bit desperate are the ones that are real. And yeah, and I think people pick up on what's real, but it is always a little fun to let your imagination run wild, which yeah, I definitely did a lot of when I first was writing, and I didn't have much to write about except for my mice. Um, but uh, yeah, I think yeah, some of my songs are like inspired by, like I've got a song that I wrote last year that is inspired by a guy just looking me like deep in the eyes, and then I wrote a whole song about it, and like made up this like whole scenario. Yeah, so I think sometimes it's fun to run along with the delusions, but I think yeah, it's always important to have some truth.
Well, they're not delusions so much as they're stories, and also there can be emotional truth in them, Abigail. This is the thing, is like,
Yes.
there's not factual truth.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I should have you around more often. You're good. You're good for me and my self-esteem.
But I was just thinking about you mentioning the Mouse songs again. I was thinking you have a canon of Mouse funeral songs, and it makes me think of something I saw recently in Church Street Studios in Sydney. I was at a gig, and there on a little keyboard propped at the side was a book that had the title "Easy Funeral Hits." And I just thought,
Oh,
no, that's not a book title, a music title of sheet music book that I ever thought I would see in my life. Easy.
no. That's very funny.
Yeah, and funeral hits alone, let alone easy funeral hits. But um,
Yeah, I'm sure.
but the mouse. Well, I guess what I'm trying to. It's a way of saying maybe the mouse canon can become easy funeral hits. I don't know.
Maybe it could. Maybe it could.
But you mentioned playing some EP shows. I'm
Mm.
guessing you'll be doing some in Sydney or thereabouts. Are you planning to go further afield?
Yes, yeah. I'm starting in Sydney with a show at the Camelot Lounge on the 13th of June.
Mhm.
And then am playing on the Saturday, the 15th of June in Wollongong at the Vault, Port Kembla. So Wollongong's where I grew up. So
All right.
that'll be my first hometown show, which is exciting, but a little nerve-wracking. And then yeah, just regional New South Wales. So then I'll be going to Albury, which is my dad's hometown. And then also Blackheath, Mittagong, Mudgee, and Dubbo. So the first two are like with my full band, and then the ones further out will be like solo or duo gigs. Yeah,
You're
I'm
heading
so
to some
excited. My
cold.
first
So you're
so
heading to some cold places at a cold time of year.
I know yeah, I when I was booking all these shows in like January and February, and I was so hopeful. And then this week when it's been so cold in Sydney, I even did an outdoor gig on Sunday and was so cold. And I was worrying like, how am I going to survive playing in Dubbo and Mudgee in the middle of winter? And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'm sure it'll make for some funny content on my Instagram of how many layers I can add on and still play the guitar. That'll be the challenge.
And does it also affect the guitar? So, if weather is quite
Mm.
cold, does it make your strings more vulnerable to snapping or something?
Oh, it might. Yeah, because I know like with extreme weather, it can change. Yeah, the tuning can go a bit out. So yeah, I hope I don't get any snapped strings.
Having said that, you're probably going to be in air-conditioned venues, and it is very cozy weather for snuggling inside for a gig.
Hopefully that there's at least one that'll be outdoors, but they will have heaters, they've told me. So yeah, hopefully we can all snuggle together, and it'll be one for the memories.
It will be, yes. Well, those dates I'm sure will be on your website and on your social media, and people can check those. And that's a good array of towns you're going to. By then, the EP will be out. It is called Soon, and I'm going to wrap it up there because I've had you talking for a while. But Abigail Whiten, what a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. This has been such a lovely, lovely talk.